Hi everyone, it's me again. I'm going to do a two-part video today. The first part is going to be a short teaching on how do you determine who is a false teacher and who's not. And also the other question is who should you listen to. And then the second part I'm going to expose a woman called Sheren who made a bunch of videos concerning amightywind, who she told a few lies about. So we're going to look at her videos. I hope my videos are not as long as hers this time. I know she made 9 parts, I think, concerning this. So let's start with the short teaching. My question was, who should you listen to? How can you tell who is a false teacher and who is teaching the truth? Now let's look at what scripture says. I like the scripture to show what I believe is right by using scripture. And that's why I always refer back to scripture when I talk about anything. Ephesians 2 verse 1 and 2 says, "You he made alive who were dead in trespasses and sins." Sins also means lawlessness in scripture. 1 John 3 verse 4. Now this also reads then, "You he made alive who were dead in trespasses and lawlessness, in which you once walked according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience." Now we already see here that the spirit that works in the sons of disobedience works lawlessness in them. Because he says here that you also walked according to lawlessness as this spirit is working in the sons of disobedience at the moment. And you will see the significance of this in the later verses in Ephesians. Ephesians 4 verse 14. That we should no longer be children tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the trickery of men, in the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting. And Shaul is telling the Ephesians here, you should not be as spiritual children, not being able to discern between truth and lie. You should be able to, because you build on the truth, you build on the law, on the Torah. You build that's your foundation. So if you have that foundation, you should be able to determine truth and lies. And you should not be tossed to and fro anymore. But he says, he warns them here, don't be tossed to and fro as little children. Ephesians 5 verse 6 to 11. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of Elohim comes upon the sons of disobedience. Again we see the sons of disobedience referred to. And I already showed you the sons of disobedience are those who work lawlessness and, of course, who teach lawlessness. Now the wrath of Elohim comes on those who teach lawlessness and to live lawless. Therefore do not be partakers with them, Shaul says. Just as we see in Revelation 18 verse 4, where that angel warns us that we should come out of this religious system of the world and not take part in what she does, because Elohim's wrath comes on her. The same what Shaul says here. Don't be part of this group of lawless people who teach and live lawless, so that you do not share in their destruction, in judgments. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Master. Walk as children of light. To determine what light darkness means, any definition in scripture, you must use scripture to determine what it means. For instance, light and darkness. Darkness is a lack of light. When there's no light, there is darkness. So let's see what light means, because darkness is just a lack of light. Light in scripture means the commandments, the Torah. We read this in Psalm 119 verse 105. And it says there that the word of Yahuwah is the light to my path. I'll read it for you in the New King James Version. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. The word here referred to by David is the law. We also see this in So Proverbs 6 verse 23. For the commandment is a lamp and the law a light. So we see that the Father's Torah instructions is a lamp and light. And we need that to walk on the narrow path. Otherwise we will fall off the narrow path. And that is the way we reach heaven, by walking on this narrow path with the light of the law on it. So we can stay on it. So light in scripture means law, Torah. Darkness, lawlessness, the opposite of light. We know that the Father is light, so is his words. The instructions that he gave is also called light. And the opposite, like I said, is lawlessness. You will see the significance of this in a later verse. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness, righteousness and truth. Now both righteousness and truth refers to the commandments in Scripture. When you look at the scriptural definition of righteousness, it says to keep the commandments. Deuteronomy 6 verse 25, Psalm 119 verse 172, Yeshayahu 51 verse 7, that's Isaiah 51 verse 7, Luke 1 verse 6. Truth, on the other hand, also means Torah, commandments, according to Psalm 119 verse 142 and 151. And now the rest of the scriptures says, finding out what is acceptable to Yahuwah. So it says that the fruit of the Spirit of Elohim is the Torah. What the Torah says. That's the fruit you will bear when the law is written on your heart. The fruits of the Spirit is in all goodness, righteousness and truth. The fruits of the anti-Messiah spirit is lawlessness. The opposite of that is the fruit of the Spirit of Elohim, which is the law. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. This is verse 27, Ephesians 5 verse 27. It says here, we already saw darkness means lawlessness. So this verse reads, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of lawlessness, but rather expose them. One thing I want to mention now is, you hear people on YouTube say, oh, agree to disagree. You don't agree with this person who teach lawlessness, agree to disagree. I don't agree with that statement, because this verse tells me that I am supposed to expose the works of lawlessness, darkness. If someone teaches lawlessness, I must expose that person's false teachings. The same Yahushua did, our Messiah. He exposed the Pharisees' false teachings. He did not sit back and relax and said, oh, I agree to disagree with these Pharisees. He exposed them for the false teachers that they were. He told the people that they kept the traditions of men and not the Father's commandments. You can read that in Matthew 15, Mark 7. And he told them that in front of everybody that they should change. He rebuked them in front of everybody. So the Pharisees really hated Yahushua for exposing their darkness. He exposed their lawlessness. And they called him a lot of names. They called him a drunkard, a party animal. They called him a guy who hangs out with all these sinners, these bad people. And so they will also call you a whole bunch of names when you expose their darkness. When you expose someone's lawlessness, they will also attack you. Not with the Bible, not with Scripture. They will use lies. They will tell lies about you. Or like these people do with a mighty wind. They will tell lies about the mighty wind. Because the mighty wind exposed their darkness, their lawlessness. So it's not a matter of bringing forth truth for these people. It's just trying to defame the people that expose them. The same as the Pharisees tried with Yahushua. And I bet there were people who believed the Pharisees in those days. There must have been people who said, yes, you're right. I believe we should not listen to Yahushua. To their own destruction, of course. But the same today. These false teachers on YouTube, wherever, when they falsely accuse a true ministry, for instance, as amightywind is, or me, or anybody else who exposes their darkness, their lawlessness, they just